everybody, welcome back. Paws up. We're going to be making the recipe that I call in my book Brandy's favorite recipe. Let's get started. While looking into homemade cooked dog foods, I realized that there seems to be a pretty common denominator of ratios. They vary slightly, with each individual person, but any of your meals and any recipes that I present for you for their actual food, not treats, but for food, will have this similar ratio to it, and it might flux slightly, but pretty true to the ratio, which is 80% of the makeup. We're gonna shoot for 10 cups of food, just as an example, okay? I'm gonna take 80% of that being my meats, okay? And then 5% of that 80% should be a fall meats, which that's your organ meat. And this time we're gonna be doing hearts and gizzards. Liver is way optimal. I couldn't find liver in the store last night. So we're using hearts and gizzards as your 5%. They are nutrient dense, and those little babies that we're cooking this food for need that nutrients. 15% will be your fruits and vegetables. Today we're going to be using baby spinach and some carrots. When you first kind of start out, it can be a little expensive, but you'll realize as the meals go, you'll have stuff prepped for your next batch of food each time. And you can go as big or as small as you want, okay, in your batches. Then there's the remaining 5%, and that can be your carbohydrates. It can be a rice. I know some people are very concerned, as am I, about the potential cyanide contents in rice. And that's simply because these fields that they're using as rice paddies were once fertilized by a pesticide containing cyanide. So a lot of people have stepped back and are going grain-free, whether the dog is just grain intolerant or due to the different pesticides. So today I'm actually going to be using I'll actually be using lentils as that other 5%. It's also another avenue of getting a little more protein into that food. You can use brown rice, quinoa, and brown rice, back to the cyanide, brown rice does tend to have higher levels of the cyanide than the white rice. I know, go figure. The healthier one ends up being the one that's not necessarily the best for you. But not all rice is tainted. Okay, so to add additional nutrients into the dog food that may not be supplied by the ingredients that are already going in it, there are certain specific things that you will need to add in. Some will do a supplement, and some can just do it on their own. I try to do a lot of it on my own. So for their omega-3s, I've got coconut. Woo! For this particular batch, I'll be doing a 1/4 cup of coconut oil in there. That'll get put into the meat and everything else. And then calcium, I use eggshells. Some people might know about using eggshells to enhance their soils in their garden, but it also does really well for a supplement for the dogs in their food. Some people are a little leery about just crumbling up the shell and feeding that to their dogs. Unless the eggshell has been cooked, that would be okay. But my personal preference, because I'm one of the nervous Nellies with my babies, is I will actually grind it into a powder just simply in my bullet. And see, you can just go like that. It's just a little powder. And I will add that individually to each of the baggies when I prepare the meals into individual meal proportions. So again, the way you would prep them, you keep them in a little container or whatever on the side. When you use your eggs, keep the shells and just make sure you rinse out. You don't have to pull off the membrane from the shell, but you should just rinse it out. Just do a quick little rinse out like that, rubbing your thumb or finger or whatever in there. You don't have to get in there with a bottle brush or anything. It'll just crumble it up, make it hard for you, and it'll go down the drain. But just rinse it a little bit so you don't have any worries of any cross-contamination of anything. And then once they're dried, put it into your bullet or your blender or one of those little chop mixer thingies and get it into a powder consistency like this. It'll make it easier for you to handle. Another great little addition is the ground ginger. If you have regular raw ginger, you can just chop it up and, you know, finely and put it in there. That helps with a lot of the nutrients as well. Again, you do the best you can for your dog. If you have to give your dog regular food, then maybe just supplement it with some of these better ingredients, so you can help your baby, you know, enhance his health, his or her health. Okay, to get everything started, I just added 1.5 cups of water into the small boiler pan, and I'll be adding that half a cup of lentils into that once that comes to a boil. But I'm gonna get the meat started also. I don't like to char the meat. There's lots of research that says, you know, there's certain carcinogens in charred meat, so I try to keep it cooked as softly as possible. So I have maybe about 3/4 to a full cup of water, and I'm adding that into the meat pot. And this is what I'll end up combining, bringing everything into this pot. So here's our 8 cups of ground pork and turkey. And then that little bit of water on the bottom will just prevent it from charring. So we don't have any worries with that. And that'll start steaming up and get happy and cook all together. Whoops. We're starting to see some bubbles on the bottom of that, the lentil pot. So we'll get that put on in there. Half a cup of those. And I just used red lentils for this particular one. You can use green lentils if you have those instead. There's no major difference with them. And give that a little bit of a zhuzh. Whoops. A little bit of a zhuzh, and I'll cover that to keep the temperature fairly consistent. And when they're finished, we'll be adding that into the meat. While that is doing its thing, I'm going to start all the other chopping prep work. Okay, so these are the hearts and gizzards, and you can tell that's a heart. Woo! That's a chicken heart, and these are little gizzards, or it's an organ meat. And we're gonna chop this up because this is our 5% of our 8 cups. You will notice that your organ meats are pretty hard in comparison to other meats. So especially these gizzards. You know, they're organs that have a function, so they have a lot more cartilage and stuff as part of their makeup. So you want to be very careful in cutting them up, and just make them into chunks, small chunks if you can. And they're just excessively nutrient dense. So that's why a lot of experts say that you should have at least 5% of your 80%. And we'll just go ahead and add that to the meat. We will not drain the meat. We will not drain that water out of the meat. We will just allow it to be as part of the recipe for some added moisture. So now this is just my kale and my spinach. I'm going to do a rough chop on it to allow it to spread throughout the meals and prevent it from only going into 1 or 2 of the bags. All these different fruits and vegetables that I will be cutting now will get added all in at the same time at the end once the meat has been fully cooked. And again, you're not seeing any spots where it's charred. You just want it gently cooked, so that's why we added the water. And once you got it all, kind of all the pink gone, you know that at least if there was something there during the packaging or whatever of the meat, that at least it's fully cooked and safe for both human and doggy consumption. Although this will be a pretty bland meal, so you're welcome to try it. I've tried a few of them. I have not tried the heart. I won't do it. But I have tried just a bite of the meat, you know, mixed together with all the veggies and everything else, and it wasn't bad. It was just bland, you know, it didn't really have great flavor. The meat, I'm gonna just leave it for another couple seconds, let those fall meats get a good cook on them. I believe our lentils are about happy, so I will add those into it as well, and they will just start to break down and become a big mushy paste if you keep going. Combine all of that. I will take it off the heat from here and then start adding in our fruits and veggies. Here's the spinach and kale pieces. Now again, it doesn't look like much, but with all the fruits and veggies combined, we're gonna be having a total of 1.5 cups. So it may not look like a lot as you put each individual ingredient in, but it will become that 1.5, giving you your 15% of your fruits and veggies. And try to pick the most colorful, nutrient-dense veggies you can find. Okay, so here's carrots. We did the pumpkin before. There's the carrots. And I'm gonna add blueberries. And then either like a cilantro or a parsley. They do have nutrients in them, and I'm going to add it, but I do not consider them as the 15%. And blueberries I'll just add in like that. They're whole. My doggie's big enough where he'll just chow down on it and be good with it. So then you'll just combine it all. Understand with a dog's nutrient consumption, he may not have everything 100% each individual every single meal. And that is totally okay. He may end up with 2 blueberries one meal. He may end up with no blueberries another meal, and that is fine. They are a gorge and fast type of animal for their eating in their natural habitat like they were wolves. Their digestive system is geared for that same type of eating. That's all. That was my 15% of items, my fruits and veggies. I'm going to go ahead and measure out the ginger. I'm going to add in the my fats, which is going to be with the coconut oil this time around. And then also I'm going to add in some parsley for the additional nutrients in that. All right, so this is the parsley. I just did curly parsley this time. There's quite a bunch in there, but that'll be fine. And this is the 1/4 cup of the coconut. And everything's hot enough in there that this will just melt down into it, and the dogs will get some good fat content from that they need. Okay, I'll also be adding in some ginger, probably right about a tablespoon of it. And that gives a lot of the micronutrients that they need as well that aren't easily found in some of the other ingredients. And as you can, that coconut oil is dissolving nicely. And this will be the final time you have to bring it all together, and then we can start rationing it out into our portions. All right, so we're just bagging these up and just giving about a cup into each of the baggies, because that's where Beryl is in his weight and his food requirements now in his stage of growth. You will have some, moisture on the bottom. Make sure you get a little bit of that moisture into each of your meals as well. That moisture down on the bottom has a lot of nutrients. You definitely want to make sure you include that into your meal packets. I will be adding the eggshells, the ground up eggshells, into each of the baggies individually. I will add about half a teaspoon, just a half a teaspoon of the ground eggshells into each one. And then I will pop all these little bags into the larger freezer bag, give them a little more protection. And we will put that into the freezer. I will leave a couple of them out to start for like tonight's meal and maybe tomorrow's as well. But I never leave more than 2 days worth out in the fridge. I don't want to spoil the food. So we're gonna let Beryl taste test this particular batch. I know he likes it, but just so you all can see that the food does really entice the dogs and they get very enthusiastic about their meals. Beryl, you're gonna wait. You wait. Wait. You just wait. Good boy, you wait. Okay. Please remind you that if you are interested and did like our video, to please like and subscribe and click the bell right there on the bottom below us, and it'll let you know when we have our next video coming out. And please write in and let us know if there's any particular recipes or questions or anything you might like us to cover for you. We'd be happy to incorporate all of that as well. So have a great day. Paws up, everybody.